There is no innovation and creativity without failure, period. Hey there, my name is Alina Catalina and you are listening to I Love Failure, the podcast where I talk to people about professional failures and what they learn from them. The I Love Failure movement started with an idea, to change people's relationship with failure. Since then, we had many sold-out events where people get on stage and talk about professional failures with a room full of people. This week, I sit down with Catalina Banuleasa. She has extensive experience in user experience design and design thinking. She led the creation of digital experiences for companies like Vodafone, ING Bank, and Electronic Arts. At Electronic Arts, from 2017 to 2019, she led the user experience team that created the very popular game Fifa. She is also the person behind the experience of ING Bank's very popular banking app called Home Bank.
To not fall in love with my stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think design also helped me, this process also helped me not get rid of that, but get more used to not falling in love with your ideas. But before becoming a designer, I think I had really moments of real frustration in meetings when, you're sharing your idea and you really believe in it. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't happen. And then because you're so much attached to that idea, what happens in your brain is that it freezes you from accepting other people's ideas.
Before we begin this week's episode, I would like to thank MindSpace for hosting this podcast. If you're looking for flexible office spaces for companies of any size, MindSpace is the place for you. Also, if you want to support the I Love Failure movement, you can go to ilovefailure.co/support. That's ilovefailure.co/support, where you can become a Patreon or buy cool merchandise. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello, Catalina. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I was thinking if I should answer in Romanian, bine. But it's both ways.
No, it's just English.
Yeah, okay,
this is an English.
It's only English.
Only English speaking.
Sometimes it's gonna be some does.
Yeah, well, the audience has to,
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I was thinking that you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then I'm gonna start with some questions because I'm really curious about your.
Then that's your
experience.
1 hour.
That's my 1 hour. Yeah, I just sit here, you just talk, and
you should talk slightly, introduce yourself, and then say bye.
Yeah, I do the rest. So.
Yeah, about me. Professionally, personally, whatever.
We're talking.
Okay, what's important about me? I'm a designer. I usually when I say this I don't necessarily do interface design because a lot of people put design into the visual part of things. What I would call myself is I try to do things starting from problems. I try to solve things, which is again a buzzword and something that a lot of people say. But I do this with the methodology of design that has, the user in the center, and then it's very fast and iterative so that you can create something that is not developed before having the confirmation of that thing that is working or is needed in someone's life or that solved the problem. What else?
So
I'm very energetic.
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
have, a lot of adrenaline, usually also in the morning. When I wake up, in 10 minutes, I'm ready to go. Even if I wake up at 6 or 5 or whatever, I'm really fast to the day.
So you're a hard worker. Usually people who work very hard are like that.
Really? I don't know. I would consider myself for the last 4 months as a sloth. Well, induced state of a sloth. But yeah, I think I work hard when most of the people around me would say I'm an workaholic. I would probably say I don't feel it like that because of the energy that I have, but that's tricky. It's very tricky.
So how did you start? How did you get into the design business? What was your beginning on this?
It began with me needing some dresses.
Really?
That's a side of the joke. I think I've always been a person who tried or has this tendency of doing things with, just creating things with my hands. I like very much to create stuff with, sewing, pottery. I haven't been into pottery, but I would really much love to start doing that. So in high school, I started doing sewing clothes for me, but only for me. And that's a very important detail for this podcast, because I never ever did something for someone else, because I was sewing the things for me in my, using just my body to take the measures and everything. So it would be an incremental development of a dress. The people are not necessarily used to that, with mistakes. They expect someone who just creates dresses and clothing to do it from a pattern and then just start sewing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do that. And because I was somehow reluctant to people telling me that's not perfect, that's not good, I would just create things for myself because I didn't want to have that criticized. And that was in high school.
Whoa.
Starting from the 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a reluctance to criticism, because I am myself a perfectionist on my road of not being a perfectionist.
Yeah, that's...
And I think this job that started in 2013, 14, the designer job that landed on my life, challenges me a lot on this perfectionist area that I have.
Okay, so you're a perfectionist who does things unperfectional.
That wants to be less perfectionist, I think.
Yeah.
And I in my job, I think I managed to do that. But when it comes to my personal life,
not really.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so I don't know if there was a failure you would like to share with us. I don't know, in this podcast we share some stories, like a story that you remember or had an impact on you, where you failed and something happened. Do you have something like that to share?
Well, it wasn't a failure. The thing that really made me feel bad, but then it also makes me laugh about that, was when I don't think this is the one failure that I share, but I was working at ING and I was leaving a meeting, a 1-hour meeting that was already too much, because in the first 15 minutes we already decided what we wanted to do. But then, as meetings happen in corporations, you need to fill up the space, so you start talking and you eventually start debating on the decision that was good initially, but then again it gets killed and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the details of the meeting, but I was fastly leaving that meeting because I didn't want to be there anymore, because usually you also talk after the meeting in front of the room. So I was, leaving. I was holding my laptop, my notebook, 2 waters that I had stolen from the meeting room, because the meeting has to pay itself, for the time. So 2 waters were stolen. And I remember very well, I had some really fancy boots that had some hooks, the fancy boots that have hooks for the things that keep the boot. And then after a corner, because I was really fast walking, I don't know how, the entanglement of the shoelaces, I call it like that, happened. So the shoelaces got tied, so my legs got tied, so I fallen on the ground in the middle of the floor. A lot of people could see. And it was that awful moment when you say, well, everybody saw me just falling there with the laptop, with the water. Everything just flew away except my laptop. I was grabbing onto my laptop, and then nobody helped me.
No. So I wouldn't call this a failure. I mean, this is an very awkward moment.
But it was a failure. I failed walking.
Embarrassing stuff.
But a failure that I would want to share.
Okay, this embarrassing stuff it's okay. I mean, if you can come up with some more, there's no problem.
I think there were moments when I failed to not fall in love with my stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think design also helped me, this process also helped me not get rid of that, but get more used to not falling in love with your ideas. But before becoming a designer, I think I had really moments of real frustration in meetings when, you're sharing your idea and you really believe in it. and then it doesn't happen. And then because you're so much attached to that idea, what happens in your brain is that it freezes you from accepting others people's ideas.
Yeah, right.
And I think, I know for sure, I mean, I'm not going to go into details of what were the ideas, whatever, but there were moments when I simply, good stuff passed by me because I didn't have the capacity to receive them because I was too into my ideas.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and
to a lot of people.
Yeah,
me also. Yeah.
That creates also a lot of frustration of why don't these guys see how good the idea is? Especially because when you're a perfectionist, you wait quite a long before sharing your idea. So I'm that kind of person that thinks very thoroughly before sharing an idea because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be judged when you're a perfectionist. You don't want to be judged. So,
but that also creates you amplify the
you amplify it, and
yeah.
then there are good ideas that are killed by you.
Yeah.
And that don't see the light because you think they are not good enough, but maybe someone could make them happen. And there was a moment because I was feeling this frustration, and sometimes you feel all the energy, all the bad energy and the stress coming from you not being happy by the fact that your ideas are not well taken. When you say, you know what, next time when this is going to happen, I'm going to try and just takes the other's ideas as as a way of growing what I just landed on the table. And that was, I think, the shift that I made. And after that, maybe not necessarily my ideas got to happen, but at least the way that I started feeling wasn't that bad anymore. Because I saw that as a collaboration and as a contribution of others to the seed that I'm planting.
Yeah, but you also have to trust these people. I mean, you cannot, if you don't, first time you see, I think you should at least know. If you know a guy is full of shit all the time, when he comes up with an idea, I usually block it.
You know what? I sometimes I also struggle. I don't think I struggle, but I try to. It's also the discussion that I recently had with friends about the artist or the art. And that's the same with the person and the ideas. Sometimes the person can be really shitty or an asshole or whatever, but the idea might be good.
Yeah.
Or the crazy thing that guy says, it can contribute very well to
your thing.
Or it could be just a different flavor, or a different way of looking at things.
Yeah, this is a huge. So you have a solution for this, or did you? I don't know. Did you manage to?
Well, I try to be.
Because this also applies to customer interviews. When you listen to people, when they talk about your product, you're still defensive. You do not really listen to. You don't get the feedback.
I think there's no solution, and there's a lot of context. There's also. You might have a headache. You might have had a difficult night. I think there's a lot of contexts that could prevent you from not be impartial or objective. But I think what really helps is just accepting the fact that person can contribute, although not attaching the person to the ideas, and not to project things on that person.
Yeah, but
to keep yourself open to what the person says.
When you get into the meeting, we talk about this now, but when you get into a meeting and you forget all this stuff, I mean, you're with your stuff, you're trying to present your idea, you don't really necessarily think about this unless you are working on yourself and you remind yourself when you get into the room, look, I have to listen to everybody, so you keep on bringing that stuff up because...
I think this becomes a habit.
Yeah, right.
But in order to become a habit, you have to actively do this before becoming a habit. So what I did when I said, from now on, because I don't want to get so frustrated anymore because it doesn't help me in my health.
Doesn't help anybody.
Anybody, exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't bring me any joy. I said, I'm going to observe the moment that these things come to my mind, and then I'm going to just actively try to put energy into listening and accepting the other people in the room ideas. And that initially is hard to do because it's not a habit that we have, and it's a lot of emotions and but I think with intention, you really have to be intentional and really want to do this. Otherwise, you're not going to create a habit. So it's, do it on purpose until it gets into your system.
Yeah, that's good advice for this.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not. Smart as it's gonna be easy. No.
No. So it's like create a good habit by just keep on doing.
And be aware of that. And in order to be aware, you really have to pay attention to what's happening and not to be absorbed by a person or by
Cool. Well, since you have so much corporate experience, I have to.
Oh my God.
No, I'm really curious. Like a lot of companies now are trying to innovate. They say, look, you have to innovate. You have to come up with stuff, especially in banking and all that stuff. And I don't know. People do not feel like this is a sort of safe to fail, safe to experiment environment, because they are used to not rock the boat, just do your thing and don't go too crazy with the ideas. So you have a lot of limitations from management, from the way the things are. So now there is a pressure on them in companies where I work and probably where you work, where they say, look, you have to innovate, you have to come up with startups, you have to do things differently and so on. But the people do not feel safe to try things. I mean, you learn to do, not rock the boat for a long time, and now you're telling me, okay, I can do this. So how can they feel safe to fail? Do you think the teams where you work were safe to experiment as much as they wanted to do, or there were some limitations? Or how can you make that environment, so that people feel comfortable, like really talking about what happened. Look, I fucked up with this didn't work. Like really open conversation. Don't hide everything. Because there is no other way to.
There are several things that I want to say right now after you mentioned this. So for me, I'm very careful when I use innovation because it's a very intimidating word. And although it's very fashionable and trendy and quite a buzzword, a lot of companies do this because it's the pressure. Everybody's doing that. Everybody's jumping on innovative project and, coming up with the next big thing. That really adds a lot of pressure to all these guys that you're mentioning that have to take this challenge to completion in an environment that they, exactly as you said, they are not used to that. They are not necessarily given the time to do that. So I would be very careful when I use innovation, and I am very careful when I use innovation. I rarely say I do innovative projects. I say I try to help companies come up with better solutions or better experiences or products or reinvent something, a process or whatever. And in the projects that I have, and the way that I work is I make things very clear. And we try in the processes there are different methodologies. Design sprint is innovative project is longer. It depends on the problem that you have, but I'm not going to get into details about that right now. I try to have a buy-in from the stakeholders, and I try to create a team of diverse people. Of course, you will say, yeah, Sherlock. It's good that you come here to tell us that. But I really try to make room for those guys that are in the team to be dedicated to the project. Because you cannot innovate when it's a part-time job.
Right, yeah.
So you need a dedicated team of good people, the right people for that challenge, because when you're talking about innovation, it's something big for the company. So you need very talented people with the good experience and the good mix.
Yeah, but they should be not afraid. I mean, there are a lot of people that are afraid of, going too far, experimenting. So it's probably your job to. So
there's another thing. How do you put those guys? How do you let those guys know that they are part in this team? Because if it's a burden to be there and you already have your full-time job, your tasks that are overwhelming, and then you have to be here, it's going to be a task. It's not going to be something that you want to be part in. Yeah, so there's a mix also in getting the people there, but also letting them know that this is a very challenging and it's going to be very difficult for them in terms of all the things that they will be doing. But there's also be a lot of satisfaction because the project has this big visibility. I mean, it's something given from the stakeholders, which are C-level or C- level, whatever. But it's an expedition that they can have for the company to conquer new worlds, let's say. But just one second.
Okay.
And what do I do with this team is try to create a bond and a safety zone. We have meetings, weekly meetings, in which, because everybody has assignments, everybody has interviews, everybody has stuff to do, and we need to get back as a group to report to each other, to talk about the struggles that we had, to talk about the experiences that we had, to just learn together as a group, because only as a group we can contribute and we can make a thing, better. We try to create this space in which people initially don't feel good to share the struggles or the failures, but then you try to individually as well, but also in the group, to take those personal matters, because it's a personal matter. When people have struggles, it's something really personal. So there's also a lot of investment into mentoring or being close to these guys to reassure them that, hey, this is the process and these are the regular things that happen. These are regular frustration and these are things that it's normal to feel. To reassure them that everything that happens is not necessarily designed, but this is the way to.
So this type of approach, do you think it works? I mean.
Yeah, I think from my experience so far, it worked. What I do, I'm not going to give names, but in a recent project that I have, our belief is that, and especially my belief is that the interviews should be, the team should conduct the interviews with the customers, because you need to be exposed to the customer's voice, and you need to be there with the customer to see what they are struggling. Be it a very important CEO from another company that is your client, or the person that does whatever in your shop. But you really need to be exposed. So in my last project that I had, there was a really important manager who had to conduct the interviews, and they were quite anxious about this, because you're a very important manager in the company, and then you're gonna go and talk with someone who's very important as a client, and maybe it's a CEO and a manager. And then you have really, because when we're conducting design interviews, you're getting into a lot of knowing about that person, also personally, but also the professional struggles and the relationship struggles. And sometimes clients could feel that it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who have to conduct the interviews know this, or imagine that this question is not okay. I'm not going to be able to ask these questions. The client will just tell me to go away, and they are so reluctant, and they have this anxiety of asking people, and they have to do that. I mean, that's a non-discussion. I mean, it's not something that I'm willing to debate on. But the way I try to do it is I'm every time close to that person until the interview starts. And not necessarily me, because sometimes, because you ask that person to do that and you put that person to do that, you don't have anymore the connection to have that person listen to you, because that person is already frustrated that you're putting them to do that. So what I do is I try to leverage other people that have good connections with this person, and support that person. To ask them to say, hey, you're just doing great. You're doing good. We're gonna be okay. You're not alone in this one.
Keep on telling them.
Yes, I try. It's not me. I'm trying to also leverage the group and to create these connections, because when you have someone in the group supporting this person, there's a connection, and whenever you're changing the binomes that are working together, you're also creating the group dynamics that creates this environment in which you not necessarily feel safe to fail, but you feel supported to try new stuff.
That's good. Yeah.
And that's the way I try to approach these longer processes of innovation, which are usually 2 to 3 months, in which you really create this I'm reluctant to say safe environment, but it's a supportive environment to try.
Supportive, yeah. This is an approach. Well, where things start, when I talk to a lot of people, a lot of teams in companies that I talk to, they say, look, when we fail, everybody blames the last guy. That's what's happening. Like they are blaming. If we, succeed with this, they take all the credit, basically. So we're fucked. If we fail, that's how they feel. If you fail, then you have to, pass it to the other guy, so it's not on you, so they don't blame you. So the blame game is really everywhere. So we fucked up because of him, or because of that, or because of. So managing this blaming thing is, being supportive and all that you said, because they have to know that you can be trusted there. Look, you are not the whole company here. We're just these people. So what you said was, they have to commit to this project, and here in this project we have this set of rules, and this is how we do things, and it's not like you are used to do in the other side. This is what
in order to create or at least to create the opportunity for a success as a company, to give some chances of some project like this to be successful. It's not just the moment when you give the assignment to the group, but I think they also, in all our projects, we really get the stakeholders each 2-3 weeks with the team, that the team has to report back to the stakeholders. And this is a great opportunity for the stakeholders to reassure the guys that, hey, we are supporting you.
So it has to be a very top-down type of thing. So.
They really need this reassurance as supportive. Yeah. Because the process itself, it's really difficult.
Yeah,
you're doing a lot of stuff. You're doing a lot of
trying. You're failing. You're doing. We have to pivot. We have to do this. We have to change. And they're not used to that.
Also from my last project, there was a really important stakeholder that told the guys. I was really happy that he mentioned this. He mentioned that this is something that the way we do this right now is something new for us as well. We've tried things before, but exactly this we haven't. So even if everything fails, even if we don't land on an idea or very new, the next big thing product or experience, the process itself is going to still be very valuable for us, because we would have learned a lot of stuff after that. So that was the thing that made the team feel more confident that, hey, we're not gonna get blamed if we don't land on the next thing.
Important.
And
so
especially
important.
because there's another thing, we're not aiming only at one product. At the end of these projects, we deliver up to 5 or 6 business cases. So it's ideas, 5 or solutions.
Okay, so companies are trying to change this mindset of the people all the time. So
some companies try.
Yeah. So the companies that want to innovate. Okay, so on a more personal level, I don't know if personal or professional.
Let's see it.
No, when you fail, something happens to you. I'm not going to get into details what. What failure is.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, how do you get back? Like, do you wallow a lot? It takes a lot of time for you to get back on your feet, or what's happening there? Do you have a process?
Usually there's a lot of voices in my head, the voice that criticizes you really big and says, hey.
So you are blaming yourself?
I'm not talking as a lunatic. I'm hearing voices. But of course
we are hearing the voices.
Exactly. We have the society, we have the parents, we have the grandparents, we have the teachers, we have a lot of, voices that we heard.
TV voices, you have a lot of
exactly.
voices.
So I'm more aware of how... So first there's the initial frustration and, voices, but then I realized this, and there's a disconnecting again of just having more quiet time and looking at that thoroughly at what happened, because in the end not everything is very few things are only bad. Dying is bad, but then in the end, everything else is also an opportunity, of course. And this is again a buzzword and a cliche. It's an opportunity to learn. But then I think you need to sit with what happened, to sit with your emotions, and to sit with why are you like that? Why do you feel those emotions? And then maybe to see what can you do and what can you take from this? And if it's really a failure in the end, because in the beginning you might feel it's a failure because maybe your ideas weren't, you again fallen for your ideas and then they didn't happen. But maybe it's a good thing they didn't happen, because maybe you would have invested a lot of time and a lot of money, and then it was in vain. It would have proven to be in vain. So I think it's, for me, the way it works is taking time.
So you deal with that problem like
I
what
wasn't
happened?
like that. I usually
Just
because I'm a
move on.
solver. I'm a solver and I'm an enthusiast. I usually move quite fast to the solution. I used to move quite fast for this. And even right now, when I see a problem, I jump immediately. Sometimes I jump immediately solutions, because that's how my brain is wired to do.
Of course.
My brain jumps to solutions. But I started realizing and being more aware of this, and when it happens, I try to take myself some time, longer time when it comes to failure, to just digest that and to just understand what happened. And
There is the risk here when you stay too much time, you know, on this, you could get trapped for a long time there. The more you think about it, the more you get trapped into that thoughts. And if it's something really bad, like something really bad that happened, you could get lost for a long time before you can move on, like stop the process. So
I don't know how you balance this, but for me it's a challenge to stay in. To stay, because I'm naturally inclined to move to the solution. So for me,
move to the next thing, basically.
Yes.
So okay, this happened.
So for me, I at least right now, it's not a problem that I might stay just too long in that, because I know I will move forward, because I'm trying to stay. The effort for me is to it's not an effort.
You can just like write down the lessons.
Yeah, but I'm
also deal with the feeling.
I think I learned how to stay with and not to rush things, because you feel we are always rushed. We always run from one thing to another, and we barely take time to stay, to make things, to just put all the puzzle pieces, to have a holistic view, and to learn from that. I'm mentally looking for the word that but it will come.
Okay, there is one other...
To integrate.
Yeah. I'm looking, I also want to ask you if you think in the past you could have done something different, like with the mindset that you had, with the circumstances, everything that happened.
Yeah.
Do you think you could have done something different or not?
I'm gonna go into, of course, there were things that I could have done differently. Of course, I'm aware of
like
those.
Right now, you could have said something different.
Exactly.
Like 1 second before.
But what I say and it's not necessarily that I learned, is that all the time, I think we do the best thing that we could have done at that moment. That was my ability. That was my ability right then. My education, my instincts, my emotions, my everything, all my being.
All the circumstances where you were primed, whatever happened.
Did whatever the best I could do. So, of course, I could have done differently, but that was my best take on that. So I can now learn, and I could have, if I go back, maybe I would do it differently. I don't know.
You say that you could have done differently. How could you have done?
No, of course, right now with the knowledge that I have, maybe I could have. But back then,
of course,
it was
I'm talking
the best.
about the past.
No, I think.
Could you change something from the past if you're looking back?
If I want to, if I would change.
No, of course, I would change a lot of things from the past. There's no problem. But the thing is, do you think it was possible to take another decision in the past? That's the question.
There's a 1 and a 0 for everything. Of course, there's for every decision that you take, there's a lot of multitude of other decisions. But that was my best take on that. And I really think I'm not superficial, and sometimes I rush into things, but I think that was the best learning decision and the best learning curve that I probably could have had with all my decisions and all the things that I've done so far.
Yeah, it helps a lot to know. This is a whole different debate about the free will and so on.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say. Let's not get into that.
No, but I'm very curious about people's perspective. So you think
we've
you could
had
have,
this before. So I think you're predisposed to take some decisions, and I think that each time you take the best decision that you could have had.
All right. Okay. There is one other thing, a problem that most people have, and is knowing when to stop. I don't know if you have this problem. Like when you start something, a startup. I know that you're an entrepreneur now, also, and stuff like that. And I know things don't work out, or whatever it is, whatever project you're working on. there is a point where you have to say, look, man, we have to stop this. This is not working, or keep on pushing it. So this is a very hard thing for people to stop when it's not working, or push forward, throughout the difficulties to go to a point. So the stopping point is the problem, basically.
I think I would love to say that there's an equation, a math formula for that. But for me, I think I have to learn to listen more to my gut and to my instincts.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, of course it's a business, and in the business, there's no such thing as
but
feelings.
You look at the metrics, you look,
but then,
you're going in the red, some stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have the user that you said.
Okay, besides that, because
let's say
if it was a matter of, I mean, usually I think smart people know how to look at facts. But I think in businesses and in professional relationships and in having your own company and having partners and having employees and stuff like that, there's a moment when aside from the facts, there's also something that deep inside or your instinct tells you this is a no-go for me anymore. I mean, of course, the math doesn't, but you would say, I've been on this road, there's been too many years in which I invested in this, I'm invested in this.
What usually happens? Let me just
go ahead.
Tell you what's happening with entrepreneurs generally. So they go with it until they run out of money, their family runs out of money, their family's family runs out. So basically, when everything is, they hit rock bottom. That's the stopping point. Even though there are signals here, signals here. If going with your gut, and again, there are companies who persevere, then they keep on borrowing, and eventually, I don't know, the market caught up with their product, something happened, and they make it. And they keep on looking at those examples, and so it's very difficult.
There's two things that I want to capitalize right now on what you said. I think people should be more educated into the skills that you need in order to take the decisions. So that's for me something that you can learn. Experiment, do some schools, look at the people that have done this in a good way. So learn how to do a business, and that's education. But I think the hard part when it comes to being an entrepreneur and take really fast decisions, and sometimes decisions that cannot be really based on a lot of, I mean, the math, the education, you have everything that you need to be a successful entrepreneur. You still need something else. And I think this is the hard part, when you really need to be intuitive and you know how to choose the people that you're working with. That sometimes is not a matter of a matrix of skills. It's also about a chemistry. It's a lot about chemistry and the way you work together and the way you complement each other and the feelings that you have. There's something deep inside you that most of the time tells you, this is not going to work. And you feel that. But by all means, when you look at rational things, you would say, this is gonna work. And then there's something inside you that is telling you it's not. And if you don't listen to that, you might spend some time into something that is doomed or is on the road to not working as...
Your take on this is go with your gut feeling. So
no, it's not my take. I mean, no, it's don't put it like that. Don't put words in. No. So I said it's a combination. It's something. This is something harder. This is something achievable if you invest time in that, and if you're open, if you experiment, if you look at people, if you learn, if you whatever.
Yeah, I know,
but this soft part and knowing people and understanding and knowing yourself.
Yeah. The problem here is, like theories are very good. Yeah. But in practice, when you're, caught into that war zone, you're doing stuff and there is absolutely no way. You're so you get attached to ideas, but here you get attached, you put everything into it. People can't stop. I mean, really, they cannot stop, and they won't stop.
But if you learn how to listen to yourself, I think there are moments when you...
Yeah, but what's happening to most entrepreneurs, the voice that, the reason voice from you, it's so small because you have a lot of other things. I should do that, and maybe I try this, or maybe I do that, and...
There's a podcast episode that I really like, and she's really on top of everybody's minds right now, Esther Perel. She has this podcast, this series of housework, And the introduction episode is about these two guys that have been doing business for a while, but things started not working. And it's a lot about this. It's about a lot of, the chemistry, the way you work. So you might be successful quite a long time, but then if you don't know how to manage this, you might be caught in a race that you don't no longer know how to deal with. And it consumes you a lot. And if this consumes you, then as an entrepreneur, you need energy to allocate to all the things that you already said. So if there's unsolved personal...
your family and
exactly.
Else.
So I think there's a balance. I mean, I'm a humanist. Probably you would say that. But I think there's a balance, and a quite really important balance in having your harmony and balance. Mm-hmm. I like to say harmony because there's always an imbalance in the entrepreneur's life, but you need some harmony, and that harmony comes from knowing how to look at yourself and trusting yourself and having the reassurance because you trust yourself and because you know how to look at things, having this reassurance that you're going to be fine because you have yourself. When you have yourself, I think that's hard. I don't know if we ever going to have ourselves. But I think there's a peace that comes from that.
Okay, so now that we talked a little bit about this, the other part that a lot of people struggle with, especially corporate people trying to get into businesses.
Especially corporate people.
I'm sorry, and it's just you're not anymore. So
I have to say that even when I was in a corporate job or position, I was, the kid who was not walking the corporate whatever.
Yeah, I know UX, like all that.
I wasn't a UX person all my life, so I kind of did it my way, and I had the advantage to be able to be allowed by my managers and my leaders to just do it my way. Because all the time I had this way of delivering. So it was my game, the way I play it was mine, because I knew and everybody around me knew I can deliver. So they wouldn't leave me alone.
So you got very good at it so everybody leaves you alone, because
it's not leaving me alone, but leaving it, allowing me to do my process. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The thing is, you've already done what I was trying to ask you is people are trying to move from the corporate to the entrepreneur, stuff, and they're very afraid of failure.
I was myself.
Yeah. So how did you get over the fear of failure? Or I don't know.
I saved money.
Okay, you said
I had the safety net.
You had the safety net,
and no, I.
They all do like 1 year. They have 1 year's expenses, and say, okay, I'm gonna go for this thing, and then they're getting closer to the.
So of course, besides the cash flow that you need to spare in order to be on the safe side, but that's also a tricky one, because when you have a safety net, it prevents you from giving 100% and more of you, because you have a safety net. So,
but you shouldn't go broke.
I know.
You hustle for every money. Okay, I talked to this postcard. Give me the money.
So because I'm fairly independent. I'm very independent, and I didn't want to have these scenarios, to have too many scenarios around me or in the future that could make me return to the corporate or to just fail at that. And you're going to say, you get to learn from failing. But anyway, so I started building this company before leaving, 2 years before leaving so I worked full time and also did projects aside. In order to create a portfolio, to create to build a company, to make it more successful, to make it better known in the market. And those two years were quite difficult, because having a full-time job and also having projects, and then not being the person to do things just to tick them. I invest my energy. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm involved in everything that I do, because I also select the things that I'm doing. So I wouldn't just take clients and projects just because I need projects. I always grow with my projects and learn from that. So I try to have different industries and different kind of projects and different teams that I work with. But I've been building the company 2 years before quitting.
That's a safe one.
Yeah. It's a very that's why I'm saying I'm not the best person to ask about taking risks.
It's very good. It's a very good approach. except like people like me who just jump right into it and oh fuck, I didn't have any money for this. What am I gonna do now? Yeah,
you're gonna be a homeless in Mama Veche.
Inside
jokes.
You start to swim. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm here.
exactly.
I have to swim. This.
Yeah,
is
and
it.
I think it's a good one also. I mean, I think that's when you get really
you
big
get
lessons.
really innovative.
That's what I think.
Something.
I was a bit spoiled, and I spoiled myself. I prevented myself from failing big at something because I knew it's gonna be. I have been since I was 19. I have been, I was working full time, so each month money would flow in. So after so many years, exactly. So after it was quite of a stress. But I could no longer stay in a corporate world where things don't necessarily move that fast as I needed back then, and I still need it.
Yeah. Okay. This is a great advice for, especially for corporate people who really want to jump ship, and they are as safe as you are, and this is a very good way to.
Yeah, but
to
I've seen people doing this. I think a lot of people that leave the company, the corporate world, try to do small steps before quitting.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so just one thing, if you would recommend some books to us.
That moment. Oh, the books. So I was just thinking, not now, before because I failed at reading your message about the books. So it was just this morning. One of the books that I really liked to mention years before was Jesus.
That book.
See that Malcolm's Gladwell, the book with the 10,000 hours, but that's not the main story. What's the name?
I have no idea, but
okay.
I'm gonna find it out and then put it on.
No, come on. There's another one. I'm gonna leave that aside. I'm gonna leave that aside. Yeah, exactly.
You can check it.
The other one that I really like, and it's because I like to understand how things work and what's the explanation around certain things that are not necessarily tied to economics or to behavior. I'm very, I'm really interested in anthropology, in economic stuff and stuff like that. It's Freakonomics, a book that I really like because it explains a lot of changes and movements in different countries, and they explain it anthropologically and economically. Why did those happen? And there is also the famous case with the murder in Kitty, the lady who was called Kitty in the US, and they explain why apparently people didn't call the police, and that person was murdered in front of a lot of people looking out of the window outside to see that person being murdered and stabbed, and apparently nobody did anything. So they take a look, on an economical look, and
sociological.
Exactly. My coffee right now is still half full. Half full. An optimist, what would optimists would say? And they take a look on this and they explain it really. I mean, there are moments when you wouldn't think of that. And let me check the Malcolm Gladwell book. Outliers. Yes. I didn't even. But it was.
Just got to you.
Yeah. Procedural memory.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Catalina. If you have some...
Yeah, the Outliers talks very much about, and that's why I like it, because it's about real people, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, lawyers, important lawyers, and a lot of people from different domains who were very good at what they did, both because of the time invested in that, and that's where the 10,000 hours come from, but also because of the chances. And again, there's a logical explanation, also similar to why I like Freakonomics, about why sometimes, your generation, your birth date, can help you or not in the career that you want to have. Because if you're an athlete and maybe you're born in August and the teams are formed in September, you have an advantage. Mm-hmm. And while if you're born in June, then you have more months and you're older than everybody in your team. And when it comes to sports, then your body is also older. So yeah, there's again this mix of understanding why some things are really, really good and successful. Besides the talent and the investment, it's also a really big factor of luck.
Luck,
yeah,
of course.
and
Luck is the...
and chance.
I wanted to talk about luck, but
there's no more time.
There's no more time. So, okay, thank you very much for coming.
For inviting. And next time I'm going to ask you questions.
Sure.
I didn't have time. I told you I'm going to ask you questions, and then I was like, oh.
Maybe you create a podcast and I'm going to come. There's no
sure. I'm going to have to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Failures.
Sure. Failures. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Whoa.